your respiratory system was the limiting factor. Not your muscle, not your heart, but your respiratory system.
So essentially what the 515 then is doing, it's trying to take advantage of this feedback loop that exists. So your muscles activate right away. It's like a switch.
Exactly.
But it's going to give feedback based on the intensity to say what I need. But there's a lag time to that.
Exactly.
And so it takes advantage of this lag time that happens with the turning on, but also with the turning off
Exactly.
of the muscle. So when you turn off the muscles, that there's a lag time. So you still, at the moment of turning off your muscles, you actually get a picture of what is happening from this supply side to this oxygen delivery side at its full capacity, because right at that moment when you turn it off, it is actually running at the capacity that it would have needed during the load.
Exactly.
But you take the load away.
And then when you suddenly start, you actually run on a capacity your regulatory system is not ready yet to actually deliver. So you actually look not what happened in the load, you look what happened when you stop the load and when you start the load. And when you repeat that twice, and the load is so minimal that your delivery system actually not get stressed out, you have twice identical pictures. If your delivery system has a problem to actually cover the need, then you have, despite the fact you have the same load, you have not two equal pictures. So you know now you changed intensity. Now your delivery system or your muscle system starts to run into trouble. It can't be done anymore. Same physical load is not the same physiological feedback.
Yeah, so to quickly bring it back to this NIRS, because we're dealing with these things today, I am now unloading the muscle now, and I need to be able to see, I need to be able to get physiological information now. Do you think that's one of the reasons why for this type of test and protocol, NIRS becomes so valuable, because it is an instantaneous measure of what's happening in the muscle, in comparison to, example, a VO2 measure or a lactate measure, which is more like of a global systematic measure, and you're losing on what's actually happening directly in the muscle with the on and off switch.
Exactly, and the delay time is not here to use it instantly. And if you're smart enough, then once you get used, you can put the NIRS on a less involved muscle or not a priority muscle, and you actually can see that you actually may shift blood from one body part to the other part. But the interesting part now, and that's why I say the 515 is an interesting concept, and it's potentially needed to do some research. But really, if you understand what you see on the 515, that's what you move then out in the field. Example, you go with your bike up a mountain and you feel that you huff and puff hard and you're not really sure what is the limitation for the moment, you just suddenly stop. And now you may have been 10 minutes going a certain intensity, same wattage if you are a wattage fan, or same heart rate if you're a heart rate fan. But the fact is you stop, and now you can see, oh, my SMO2 still drops despite the fact that I actually not anymore need as much oxygen. I need the oxygen for the delivery system, but because my respiratory system is limitation. So now you know, I bike up in Switzerland, the Fleur Pass, oh, my respiratory system is the limiting factor, not my muscle. So my legs are not tired because I push my legs. My legs are tired because my central governor system tells me you can't afford to send oxygen in your legs because I really need it for your breathing system that you survive. So the beauty of the 515 is it's not a performance test. It's a physiological feedback test. You learn to understand what it means when you have certain feelings in your body and certain trends on your NIRS equipment, whether it's a watch or whatever you use as a feedback. And once you understand that, you see during the training what for the moment you actually overload. Is it your muscle? If that's the goal, great. Is it your breathing system? If that's the goal, great. But if your goal is to overload your muscle, but your breathing system is the limiting factor, then you're not actually training your muscle. You may actually kill your muscle because you're not delivering enough oxygen. So your so-called aerobic training, or whatever it means, oxygen-dependent training, is now suddenly not that, despite the fact your wattage would indicate it, despite the fact your lactate value will indicate it, or your heart rate may indicate it. It's not what it is, because your physiological system tells you what the limiting factor is. So my idea from a 515 is not what perhaps a lot of coaches or centers would like to do, just get people regular tested. My idea is that people use a 515 test to understand the physiological reality, how it works. And if you understand that, then you bring it over in a practical situation. Whether it's a strength training, a simple biceps curl, you know exactly when you have to quit, your body, you feel it, your NIRS will tell you. the body system will tell you how long the break will be before you do the next set and whether you're able to be the next set. It is not 30 seconds on, 1 minute break. That's an organizational skill, another physiological fact. It's not that every rest in between a load, whether it's interval or strength, has to be the same time. That's just not how it really works. Your body will tell you, or your goal of the workout will tell you, whether you like to have a too short break because you like to deplete faster and faster, or whether you like to have a full recovery because you like to repeat many times the same load to maintain your coordination or your technique. So NIRS is the first time and equipment where your body gives you the feedback how your training program has to look like. 5 times 400 meter is not a physiological training. That's an organizational skill from a coach who looks good. 50 meter sprints in a pool is based on an architectural limitation of the pool length. It has nothing to do how a physiological system would react. And now we have what everybody dreams. We have a live feedback. Whether you deliver enough oxygen that you're so-called old school aerobically, or you not deliver enough oxygen because you use more oxygen than you need, which old school would mean anaerobically. Now we have it, we see it. And then for me it's absolutely unbelievable that we still believe we have to poke a finger, which tells nothing, and then use the word anaerobic, when in fact I can use and produce a heck of a lactate completely aerobically. So we have now what we tried with lactate measurement to look for, and we still stick on that instead of using now the real information, which is exactly why we originally had to use lactate, or we're hoping we could use lactate.
So one of the interesting points that you brought up there, I find, is this idea that the 515, or like being able to differentiate between what is a performance test and what is a physiological test, because I feel those get confused a lot.
Exactly.
So talking, and this gets confused a lot between what a science physiology guy and like a coach.
Exactly.
Right. So.
But the answer is very easy. A physiological guy should test physiological information.
Exactly.
A coach should test performance. So if you're an ice hockey player, making a 3-minute lactate step test on a bike is either or. It's physiological nonsense, it's from the sport point nonsense. Just because you're a good cyclist doesn't mean you're a good ice hockey player. If a swim coach makes a VO2 max test on a bike, I have not even a clue why somebody would come to this idea. So if I, as a coach, like to make a performance test and I have a 400 meter runner, I let the guy run 400 meter because that's his performance test.
Exactly. And then the time?
And the time will tell you whether your training improves his performance. Okay. If I like to know how long this 400 meter runner should make his intervals, then I not can base them on 400 meter. Yes, that's his race distance. But perhaps by 330 meter, his technique falls so much apart that the last 70 meter, he overloads the wrong muscle, he may get an injury, because he doesn't run anymore, he just tries to get to the 400 meter marker. So with NIRS now, you can make a perfect physiological training, understanding why he starts to change his coordination and technique. Because the main guy, the main muscle, is out of action. So now you start using compensatory muscle, like your abductor muscle, that's why your legs turn out. That's why the guy sits back. So yes, he's still running, but he is not training the muscle he's supposed to use to have a better performance.
There's the problem. So because this happens a lot, especially with oxygen testing, and this goes back to this performance physiology question, is that if you have someone who looks at a lactate curve, but even a NIRS curve, a MOXIE data, and makes assessment about this is a good or a high performing or low performing athlete based on some physiological data, that is likely a wrong approach. If you want to know if someone is a good or a poor athlete, then you can say, well, how fast does he run? Or how much wattage can he push? Or how fast does he swim? Then he's good or bad in relation to how fast other people are. And the physiology is only the black box question of, well, why not more performance?
Exactly. I mean, there's very few disciplines in the Olympics where you bring your lactate curve in and say, my lactate curve is better than his, I should get the gold medal.
Yeah, my VO2 is the highest, why didn't I win?
Exactly. Yeah. And that's the frustrating part for a lot of top athletes. It's a frustrating part if you base a team, whether you make a team or not, on a standardized physiological test. So you may have a top athlete in ice hockey because he has the width, how the game goes. He has the skills, but he may be physiologically not the top athlete. But on the ice, he's the best athlete. So why would you throw him out of the team? Because his lactate curve looks theoretically the worst.
And physiologically on the ice, he might actually be
Exactly,
really good.
exactly.
And physiologically,
because he hates cycling.
Yeah.
Or he, out of whatever reason, doesn't actually think he has to make an effort on the bike because he hates it.
Or for the VO2 test, he
Exactly.
decides to lose 10 kilos.
That's
because
right.
His
He
VO2
looks
per
perfect.
kilogram is way better.
Exactly.
Okay. I think we're going to stop there
Yeah.
because of time.
Sure.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Okay. Thanks for listening, and we'll put a video up next week sometime again. Thank you.